I had that experience with you during my ISB application is the reason I came back again to you. Even though the results were not in my favor, the journey itself was pretty eye-opening. Kind of introspection I had at that point of time that really motivated me to come back to you and get more clarity on my entire journey and start afresh. So what management masters really did for me was to provide that framework. You have that framework in place where you tick those points, and when you tick those points you automatically get a story in place of your entire journey.
Hi everyone, this is Piyush London. I'm the founder of Management Masters, a boutique admission consultancy firm for the top MBA programs around the world. Today we have with us in this interview Konark, who has received an admit from NUS. So without further ado, let's talk to Konark. Hi Konark, it's been great working with you. It's been great sort of seeing your journey together. And could you just give us a brief introduction about yourself and where are you coming from?
Sure. So first, at the outset, thank you, Piyush, for inviting me and letting me share my journey through this Management Masters platform. Coming back to your question, so my name is Konark Goel, born and brought up in New Delhi. As far as my education is concerned, my curiosity into all things electronics led me to pursue electronics engineering from one of India's renowned institutions, VIT Vellore, where I actually had my first leadership experiences also, being part of being the vice president of Debate Society and being the team leader at ISAC. Subsequently, I had also done a post-grad in business analytics from IIIT Bangalore. This is something that I had pursued parallel to my regular day job. The intent was primarily to get some analytical tool techniques concepts into my ammo, so to speak. My professional journey has been primarily about working in an intense cross-function ecosystem, working with finance, supply chain, legal, primarily into large projects. The specific activities that I've undertaken belong to business development, strategy, and bid management,
Mhm.
specifically into aerospace and defense sector.
Right.
So my first substantial role was at HFCL Group, $600 million revenue company, was part of the bid management team, worked with international players, preparing financial bids, carrying out different business development activities, vendor negotiation, due diligence, etc. So that experience was a very rewarding one because I was part of the team which won a $5 million contract with the company, was fast tracked to a promotion as assistant manager, and won a couple of sports trophies as well for the company.
Right.
And then I moved to the Tata Aerospace and Defense, which is the strategic arm of the Tata $100 billion Tata Group. I believe this particular experience has been that spike in my career, so to say, because I was made to lead the business development and strategy for the international market now, for the large drones and aircrafts. So this role was primarily like an internal strategy consultant of sorts because I was in charge of making those export strategy models, heavy on data analytics, building those strategic alliance frameworks for the partners, and at the same time executing those strategies as part of the business development process for the international market. So a
Mhm.
very rewarding experience, no doubt about it. Work with different industry partners, industry leaders like Airbus, Lockheed Martins of the world. And a very unique experience that actually happened with me throughout my Tata journey was that I was selected for a Tata Impact Consulting project. So I
Mhm.
actually assisted a social enterprise in scaling up their revenues, devising their marketing strategies, and optimizing their operations. So yeah, this has been primarily my journey, so to
That
say.
sounds pretty interesting and so
Yeah.
fascinating. And just to let our viewers know, the landmark deal that happened between Tata, the landmark aircraft deal that happened with the Tatas a few months ago. You were working on that deal, right?
Right. So I was working alongside different colleagues of mine
Yeah,
on that particular Tata Airbus deal. So
right.
seeing that come to fruition was again a very rewarding experience, no doubt about it. It
Absolutely,
was a different eye
absolutely,
opener altogether working with Airbus. Yeah.
absolutely. So just to help me understand a bit and also sort of help others understand, since you were having such a rewarding career, such an interesting sort of niche phase that you were active in and doing pretty well, right? What led you to start thinking about an MBA?
Mhm. So this is a question that I routinely get, not just at my job, not just in my professional setup, but also in my personal sphere. So I think I'll have to go back to my experience at HFCL. So one thing I want to point out is that I've been fortunate enough to be always in the business aspects of things right across my professional career. So the job roles that I've been given were generally given to post MBA people. So to speak, I was always already in a job role, not at HFCL Group or at Tata, which was primarily given to post MBA people. But what really was missing in terms of the work I was carrying out is, first was the academic aspect of it. So no doubt I was preparing those business cases, I was carrying those business development activities, but somewhere down the line, I felt that the conceptual clarity was missing. So one aspect of pursuing an MBA, that to an international one, was to get an exposure to those academic nitty-gritties of a particular subject. Let's take, for example, cash flow, for that matter. Understand that from renowned faculties, and understand that from the renowned faculties, and put that to practice during the different case studies that happen. And second aspect of why pursuing an MBA was I actually thought of pivoting my career towards strategy consulting roles. So that is another aspect that really pushed me towards an MBA. But for now, as of now, if you ask me, again, that is something that has come from a lot of wisdom and a lot of experience, that charting a career or charting a journey on paper, or probably for an interview for an MBA, that I want to do this post MBA is one thing. And understanding that there are different options that an MBA can provide. Now, let's say when I was deciding to pursue an MBA, I was thinking about pursuing strategy consulting post MBA. Now I realize as closer I get to starting an MBA and talking to different peer groups, network people across my network, I realize that probably there are different options more available post an MBA. So I think that is something that people need to really think about, that don't put yourself in a box. MBA has a lot of opportunities to throw at you, and that is the second reason I would feel that one should pursue an MBA, and I am pursuing an MBA for that.
Right.
One is the
So not
academic
just
aspect. Yeah.
so if I understand correctly, it's not just to you have a particular goal in right, but it's not just a mindless or a blind sort of following onto that goal, but also keeping yourself open to maybe new opportunities that might come your way, come in your way as you do your MBA.
Right. Perfect. Yeah.
Right. That makes sense. All right. So another very interesting thing in your sort of profile was that you had also prepared for UPSC for a year or two, right? So that came up as a career gap for you. So could you tell us a bit about how did you sort of tackle that career gap aspect? And based on your sort of experience, what would you suggest future candidates to do if they're in a similar situation?
Right. So I had a close to 2-year UPSC gap. The fortunate thing about me was I had gone till the interview stage, but obviously I wasn't successful in terms of getting the right output out of that preparation. As far as my advice to the candidates is concerned, is that be honest about it. The admissions committee is open to understanding your weak areas, or probably areas where you had failed as an individual. They have a separate essay specifically to address certain things that you want to address them, sort of in a separate manner altogether. So use that space judiciously, I would say, and I use that space on your recommendation only to highlight that there was a gap. I had prepared for UPSC, and if possible, try to align your post MBA goals with whatever you were trying to do, or rather achieve with UPSC. I think that really can help you build a right narrative in terms of convincing the adcom that that is something that was not a knee-jerk reaction from your end in terms of preparing for UPSC or going for UPSC.
Right.
It was a well thought out decision. So
right. I think in our case we did that you did that pretty nicely, right? Because you talked about a particular long-term goal that you've had, and that's the long-term vision that you've been working towards.
Right. So you need to tie it all together just to make the adcom understand that it wasn't a hush-hush decision from your end to pursue UPSC, or it wasn't a peer pressure on your part. It was a well thought out decision from your end to pursue a journey like that.
Absolutely.
So that becomes
Absolutely.
very important.
I would also, just to highlight here or just to add here, I would also like to sort of highlight this very, very clearly that this gap that you had with UPSC, this was uh, quite a few years ago, right? So
Right,
after
right.
you prepared for UPSC, you graduated from college,
Yeah,
you took that gap for UPSC,
yeah.
and then post that gap, you had been working for 4 to 5 years already,
Right, right,
right?
right.
Because a lot of candidates who come to us with, who have this UPSC career gap,
Mm,
they usually have, they graduated college, they have a 2, 3, 4 year
mm,
gap,
mm.
right? And then they immediately want to go into an MBA,
I
right?
think
Which,
I think that's the wrong strategy, I would say. You
right?
can wait it out. So see, we need to understand that international MBAs allow you that ability or that provision that you can pursue your MBA even after, let's say, post your 30, right? So
Yeah.
you have time on your hands. So one advice I would recommend to those candidates is don't rush into things. Again, jumping from UPSC directly to an MBA just shows that you are just jumping into different territory altogether without any thoughtful decisions at play. So yes, that was a conscious decision on my part. That
Mhm.
post my UPSC, I wanted certain under my belt, and probably
Exactly.
then I want to go for the MBA. So yeah, so highly recommend those kind of candidates to go for a job. Any kind of job would do. That's not an issue. Get some work experience under your belt, and probably then go for an MBA.
Now, let's talk a bit about, when you talk about the MBA application prep, right? There are multiple elements to it, right? You have to prepare for the GMAT. You have to sort of identify which schools you're applying to apply to. You have to work on the essays. But then usually the first issue that people face always comes with the GMAT, right? And especially for candidates like you who are working and very demanding jobs, right? Uh, for a lot of aspirants who reach out to us, this is probably one of the biggest issues that they face as to how do they prepare for GMAT while working, right? So could you tell us a bit about how did you sort of manage that? What was your strategy in sort of preparing for GMAT? And how did you go about the entire?
So my first attempt at GMAT was kind of a hush-hush kind of an experience, not really structured process in any manner. So my first GMAT was over 690, and I realized that I was tapping into all kind of different sources, so to speak, the free sources all across the internet. So I think that is a very bad strategy to follow. So again, for me, it came from an experience that that is a strategy that should not be uh, replicated in my further attempts. Subsequently, since it was a demanding job, I realized that I needed a structured approach. So I took an online coaching, some sort of thing at a recognized coaching institution. There were different video lectures available. Video lectures help you to access uh, the courses anywhere while you are traveling, while you're working, or probably while you are sitting at home. So that is a strategy that I adopted, that to have a structured approach, because as the jobs are demanding, I didn't have work from home, so I had to travel to work. So that is one thing as well that I had to cater to as part of my GMAT journey. So one advice I would strongly recommend to anyone is that don't go after the free resources available on the internet. Go for a structured approach. There are a lot of video content available, structured video content available at different coaching institutes. Take any one of them, and stick to an approach, stick to a structured approach, and nail the concepts one by one. And don't rush after a deadline that okay, I have to score 750 in 1 month, or 750 in a two week sort of thing, because that is something that, again, in my first attempt I did make that mistake, because I had a goal in mind that okay, I'll score 740 in first 2 months of my prep,
Mhm,
and that totally went haywire. So
mhm.
learning from my own experience, I would say go for a structured approach. Uh, have material that is not readily available. It is something that is through a proper coaching institute, and stick to a plan. That's more important.
Mhm.
And don't
You,
force yourself into a deadline, I would say.
all right. You mentioned a very, very interesting aspect, right? That you started with a particular target score in mind that you wanted to get to 740, or Others would often start with a 750, 760, or whatever it is. And then you said that don't have that, right? So any particular reason why would you say that? Or if, let's say, if somebody asked you, what would be a target GMAT score that one should have? What would your advice be?
Uh, I would recommend that once you are able to nail your concepts, understand those concepts, probably give a 1 or 2 mocks, only then have some kind of a target in mind. Because what I've realized is that everyone is born with different abilities, everyone has different grasping powers, everyone has different processing powers, and GMAT is an algo-based test, right? It's based on certain algorithm. So sticking to one particular kind of a score or a target in mind, I really don't think it helps. It really pushes your brain to be as inefficient as possible, so to say. I would probably, you can have a range of some sorts, that let's say you have to score a 700 plus. That is something that is realistic enough, and that should motivate you enough to further your goal. But I strongly believe that GMAT, the kind of GMAT the exam is, the kind of structure it has, it's a futile attempt to have a particular score in mind. It's better that you go step by step, understand those concepts, probably give 1 or 2 mocks, and then probably decide that, okay, this is the kind of score that you would target. It's a highly inefficient process. At least that it worked. It turned out to be, for me, that it was inefficient. I wasted a lot of time in that aspect by fixing a particular target score in my mind initially in my GMAT preparation.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Could you tell us a bit about, where did you end up applying? Which schools did you target, and how did you actually select those schools? And these would be the places that you would want to apply.
Right. So, as far as my thought process goes, first parameter that I took into consideration for my B school was the geography.
Okay.
I was very clear that I want to remain in the Asia Pacific region, or worst case, Europe for that matter. But I was not interested in going to US or Canada. So that was kind of my first filter that I had applied for my B school. And then I started to zero down on what are the best schools in, let's say, the Asia Pacific region and Europe. So I had zeroed down on NCR, NUS, and LVS. ISB was kind of a backup option because I was looking for an international MBA. I was not looking for an Indian MBA. So that is something that I was clear about. So that was it. So just to come to that point, that my first exposure to management masters was actually applying just to ISB.
Yeah.
So that was primarily because I was rushing into things. I didn't know what I wanted to pursue. I didn't have the right GMAT score in hand as well. So again, lesson learned was don't rush into things. You need to have certain clarity as to what are your post MBA aspirations. You need to have certain level of GMAT score availability with you, and you need to have that clarity in terms of your goals that you want to pursue post MBA. So don't rush into things. And my second experience with management masters working directly with you was all about getting that clarity, that was these are the schools that you need to target, and this is how you can target. So yeah, this was
Right.
my thought process. Yeah.
Right. Makes a lot of sense. So geography was a very important criteria for you, right? Any other sort of aspects that you kept in mind while
I
selecting
think
your school?
I think second aspect was definitely a shorter tenure of the MBA. I was not
Okay.
looking at a 2 year MBA at all. I was primarily looking at a 1 year or 1.5 year MBA. A kind of MBA that provides me that flexibility to probably pursue a 12-month or a 15-month kind of a course. That was on my radar as well. And thirdly, I think the diversity aspect of it was also somewhere at the back of the mind when I was applying to my B schools. That
I think when you mentioned that you wanted to apply for international programs, I think
right,
that automatically sort of
right.
comes together with that, right?
So it comes by default only, that diversity is something which is an important criteria for you. So yeah, geography, diversity, and the fact that
The
the
tenure,
1 year MBA, the tenure
right?
of the
Right.
yeah. So
Makes
these three
sense.
are important parameters. Yeah.
Right. Now, coming to the application side of it, right? Could you tell us a bit about how did you go about the application this way, this year? And specifically, let's say, since you applied to ISB last year as well, right? and unfortunately that was not successful. So how did you change certain things this year that you noticed in your application strategy of how you were approaching the essays for the different B schools that you applied to?
Mhm. So going back to middle of 2022, I had a call with you that I got into Tata and I'm looking to apply for these applications in the R1 of 2023, sorry, 2022. So my strategy was very simple. First was to get the right GMAT score in hand. I think that was something that had to be ticked off as soon as possible. I ticked it off in the middle of June. So first was getting the right GMAT score, and secondly, I think this is where Management Masters came into the picture. That the amount of introspection via structured approach is something that I had gone through, which helped me get that clarity in place as to what are the B schools I can target given my profile background, given my GMAT score, and the kind of goals that I should at least write down in the application so as to have a coherent story in front of the admissions committee. So that was kind of the process for me. Get that GMAT score in place and work in management master through a structured approach, get that clarity of thought process in play, and have a coherent story in mind. Yeah.
Right. So what would you advise, future aspirants who are starting to work on their essays, right? So how would you advise them to sort of approach the MBA essays and sort of build their application?
I believe one should not first of all jump to the essays at the outset. It's very, very important that you get your story right. You introspect on your journey that you have been carrying or going through for the last, let's say, 5 6 years, whatever it may be. So that becomes, I feel, very, very crucial before anyone jumps onto the essays. Before you go to the website of that particular B school and download the essay, it's very important that you, in your mental clarity, get that aspect right. That what's the journey that you have gone through and why certain things happened the way it did, and what were the driving factors behind your decisions at every juncture of your journey. So I believe before you even start penning down any of your thoughts on a particular essay in a B school, it's very, very important that you go through that journey. Uh, and I believe that is where an outside help from a master's kind of an institution can help you. You have a framework in place where you can introspect. A person can introspect through different elements of their journey, and have a story in place. So yeah, for me, for anyone starting their essays right now, don't jump to the essays. It's important that you sit down with yourself, just recall what are the decisions you took, why you took, and make a story out of it, a coherent one.
Right. Now, since you're going to NUS, right,
Mhm.
what is the one thing that you are really, really, or the most excited about at NUS?
I think the kind of diversity that will be at display. So I'm part of the LinkedIn group now. They have admitted
Mhm.
me to the LinkedIn group. I see people from Myanmar, Cambodia, Europe, Japan, Australia, everywhere across the APAC region, as well as Europe, and some from North America. So I'm really excited about the diversity at play. People have different backgrounds. One is an architect, one is an investment banker, one is a consultant. So I believe the kind of diversity at play is something that I'm excited about. And yeah, and the academic part of it. So NUS is a huge campus, a lot of amenities at play. So that is something that I'll fully leverage. I'll fully enjoy all the sports arenas they have. Hope to play a lot of
Absolutely.
lawn tennis there. So yeah, pretty much excited to be on campus, enjoy all the amenities there, and interact with my peer group. Yeah.
Right. That sounds pretty good. So, a very, very quick sort of feedback question for us, right? So, because we had also worked together last time, right? When you had applied, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, we had applied to ISB in round three in the previous year, right?
Round two, round two.
Round two, right? And unfortunately, that was not successful, right? Why did you decide to come back and work with us post that unsuccessful sort of thing that we had together?
I think the better question would be, or rather, I would say that the fact that I had that experience with you during my ISB application is the reason I came back again to you.
Okay.
And the reason is very simple, that the kind of introspection I had at that point of time, I was working with Aniket at that point of
Yeah.
time. The kind of introspection journey that I went through, even though it was in a very short span of time because we had limited time to play with, that really motivated me to come back to you and get more clarity on my entire journey and start afresh. So I think what Management Masters really did for me was to provide that framework. You have that framework in place where you tick those points, and when you tick those points, you automatically get a story in place of your entire journey. So I think my experience of working with you on the ISB application is something because of which I actually went back to you, because the journey, even though the results were not in my favor, the journey itself was pretty eye opening, I would say, and that is what matters. The journey matters more, I believe.
That's very kind of you. Yeah. Could you tell us a bit about, because we also worked on the interviews once you received your sort of uh, interview invite. Could you tell us a bit about how did we sort of help you with the interviews, or what worked very nicely for you, or something that you would want us to improve maybe?
The interview, I had taken two interviews for you with you for my ISB application last year, and the kind of insights that I got from the alumni were pretty amazing. So I was actually interviewing after a long time, generally speaking. So that really motivated me to get my answers right in a coherent way, in a structured manner. They pointed out the weaknesses that I have, or probably something that I can improve in. So interviews, those are 30-minute interviews, but the kind of insights that you get from that 30-minute interview is something, it's truly remarkable. Because I'll tell you what, when a person like me doesn't really get anxious before an interview, right? I feel pretty confident about it. But we don't realize when you are actually interviewing, we don't realize the kind of mistakes we are doing. So that external help really helps you to understand, okay, these are the small areas that you can work on to improve upon whatever you have in your arsenal. So I believe for a person who probably is anxious before the interview, that's a very good thing to have, because it helps you to just open up a bit more, help you the practice before the actual interview. And a person, for let's say a person for a person who is not really anxious about interviews, it really refines your approach in addressing certain questions when posed.
Right, right.
Yeah.
So that's very kind of you. I think it's been great. We come to the last part of the interview section that we have, that we call the rapid fire, right? And this is going to be a very quick sort of series of 5, 6 questions that we have for you, uh, which you need to. We are not expecting long answers. We are expecting very short, maybe one word or one sentence answers, right? So this is kind of like the fun element that we would want to have.
Mhm.
So let's start with the first question. Uh, Through your own journey for B schools, right? What is the biggest myth about MBA applications that you have realized?
I think the biggest myth I have realized is that you can't really tune your weaker areas. Your weaker areas is something that will always go negative against your application. I think it's a pretty bad myth, I would say. It can be a low GMAT score, it can be a gap in a career, it can be a low GPA. Everything can be fine tuned. Everything can be packaged in a way that suits your narrative. So that is something that was kind of a myth buster for me, because when I started working with it, I realized that okay, uh, weaker areas can be tuned in a way that suits my narrative, or rather
Correct.
goes in my favor. So this is the biggest myth buster, I would feel, that when a person says that you have a weak area, that is fixed, that goes against you. That is not the case for international MBAs, at least, I would say.
Nice, nice. Uh, from your perspective, how important is the GMAT or the GRE score to get into an MBA program?
Uh, I believe GMAT score does help. You can't really ignore the importance of a GMAT score, but it's not the only thing that matters in the application. That's very important. It's not the only thing. It's an important thing, but it's not the only thing in your application journey. So people fuss too much about getting the highest GMAT score as possible, and they waste that crucial amount of time probably they could have done in enhancing their application rather than improve their GMAT score. So a decent GMAT score is something that one should target at least to get a shot at the top B schools. Beyond that, it's purely your interview skills and your application. So GMAT is an important element. I don't know what's the percentage of it, but it's not the only element. Yeah.
Sounds pretty nice. What was the most interesting aspect of the application for you?
I think it has to be the introspection journey. Just sharing one example, I was just sitting at 4 a.m. You had sent me those PPT templates, those frameworks to dwell upon in order to understand my own journey. I was just 4 a.m. In the morning. I was just sitting and just dwelling on my entire journey. For the next 1 hour or so, so much insights came into just dwelling on those journeys through that framework is something that is really enriching, I would say. Even if you don't get into the top B school or the desired B school, but the fact that you get that opportunity to take a momentary pause and just revisit your entire journey in terms of what are the decisions you made, what are the factors behind those decisions. I think that really, for me, is the most interesting part of the application journey, the introspection part of it. Yeah.
That's very, very interesting to hear. And what would you say was the most challenging part of the journey for you?
It has to be the GMAT part. And the reason is very simple. As I said earlier, that I didn't really got to a good start in my GMAT journey. I was running all across around the place in terms of getting the resources, reading different articles, understanding or reading, probably hearing about different interviews. So I feel the GMAT journey for me was the most challenging part, not because of getting to the score, but it's more about the fact that how I had to approach that journey. That really was an eye opener for me of sorts. Yeah. Yeah.
Right. What is one thing that you wish you knew before you started your application journey?
Oh, that's a good question. Probably the how do I put it? Probably the way essays are to be written.
Okay.
Because so I tend to for me it was kind of a interesting task to fit on those answers in that limited space that is available for you. So I believe that if I had better writing abilities, I would say, or rather
From my experience, you had good writing abilities, yeah.
that's kind of you. But I believe that I did expand a lot on my journey, or rather on my answers, and probably that is something that I could have worked on earlier, just on my writing skills. That would have
Mhm.
enhanced my application even more. I don't know.
And the final question that I have is one piece of advice that you would give for future aspirants.
Uh, don't go after free material. Don't go after free stuff. Go for something. It doesn't matter how much you pay. It's more important that you go for a structured approach, because time is of essence. There are deadlines to be met in terms of R1, R2, R3. Have a structured approach in place, and once you have a structured approach in place, everything will fall in place automatically. So don't run across all the place like I did initially in my journey, and stick to one plan, stick to one coach. It can be a coach, it can be an agency, it can be an organization, it can be you yourself devising your own plan. Just stick to a plan, have a structured approach in place. Yeah, that's more important.
That's super interesting. I think this is one of the most unique advices that we have seen so far. But thank you so much, Konark. This has been an absolutely wonderful interaction. It was lovely working together with you for us as well. And I'm really glad that, after uh, two attempts at IST, we still end up with a wait list, but we are able to make it into a better school, or a better fit school for you,
Right.
that you really wanted. Because I remember even when we were discussing, you know, you did say something like NUS. If NUS happens, I don't care about anything else,
So
right?
the interesting thing that happened was I had my ISB interview 2 days after my NUS interview, and
Yeah.
my NUS interview went good. I would say that they were happy with my responses, and I just became lazy after that. I didn't even want to go to the ISB interview, to be very honest. So yeah, that is how preferred NUS was for me as a B school. Yeah.
Right, right, right. So it has been lovely knowing you, working together with you, and playing a small part in sort of helping you get you anywhere. I wish you the best, everything, and we will stay connected. And thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Piyush. Thank you for this opportunity. Lovely to interact with you, and all the best for the future.